In 2016, Ratan Tata made a small investment in a growing eyewear startup. Little did he know that this company would not only become one of his biggest competitors, but also become 5x bigger than a brand from the mighty house of Tatas themselves. This is the first story in our new profitable startup series on the GrowthX Wireframe. We'll go deep into learning how Lenskart became the eyewear market leader despite starting 3 years later than Titan Eye Plus, to now owning 5x of Titan's entire market segment. I'll tell you 4 core problems that Lenskart solved to get here. But as with everything GrowthX, let me give you some context first. See, the year is 2010, a time when most of the eyewear space in India is unorganized. In fact, it still is, by the way. But at that time, no one was even thinking of purchasing branded spectacles. See, when it came to a chashma, Indians usually relied on their nearest eye shop uncle. It's like the eyewear industry has been pretty much like the restaurant or the clothing industry, where the unorganized sector still rules the market. Even today, more than 70% market share in eyewear is owned by the unorganized players. But what's interesting here is that Peyush Bansal, the founder, was not an expert in this space. He literally knew nothing about spectacles. In fact, he was an electrical engineer working at Microsoft in the USA. Some can say that a dream job for a lot of techies in India. But a major light bulb went off for him when one day he visited Bill Gates' house and heard Bill Gates talking about changing the world and some new ideas that he was working on. This is the moment he knew he needed to start something of his own if he wants to create a big change in this world. So Peyush comes back to India and starts working from his garage. His first company was not Lenskart, but something called Search My Campus. It was a site focused on classifieds for college students looking for jobs, accommodation, carpool, all of those things. And things were going fine, but he realized that this was not the big change that he left his high-paying job in Microsoft and the US for. So he started something called Flyer.com. Flyer was the very first version of Lenskart, but it was only built for the US markets. And the idea was simple. They would distribute orders among their dealers and they shipped it to their customers in the US. But this was not big enough for Peyush. And this is when he met his co-founders Amit and Sumit. This trio created Value Technologies. The idea? Add value to customers' lives by eliminating retailers. Yeah, value. They wanted to be bullish on India and the e-commerce wave that was about to hit the country. So they created an e-commerce platform with multiple brands. JewelsCart, WatchCart, BagsCart, and Lenskart. Lenskart came here. So while they were building this and in the process of building this company, when all of this dust settled, Peyush was able to break the clutter and see that there was one big problem glaring right at him. In the midst of solving all of this, he understood that there was no big brand in the optical space, and he observed a subtle shift happening towards the branded segment. An opportunity for a mainstream reliable brand that could be popular across all ages in India. I mean, just look at how popular their Hustler series has become. It's become a cool style statement, and this is kind of where Titan Eye Plus has failed. So in 2010, this founding trio left the e-com bit and went all in on Lenskart. They knew that the market was big enough, that something massive could be built here, even without their entire e-commerce and multiple strategies play. With this, they decided to take on Tata Eye Plus, which then was India's largest retail chain in eyewear already, and with the Tata's vision to dominate the Indian optical industry. But cut to today, almost 14 years later, the tables have, as you know, turned. Lenskart is doing nearly 3,000 crores of annual revenue and is literally dominating India's organized eyewear segment with 25% market share, which is the highest in the market. Plus, it's 5x of the revenue and the market share of the entire Titan eyewear segment. Mind you, this is the entire Titan eyewear segment, which includes not just Titan Eye Plus, but also other brands like Fast Track and Titan Glares. So when Tata's eye care division grew at 33%, Lenskart grew at 100% year on year. And so began Peyush Bansal's dream to make Lenskart the Maruti of Indian eyewear. Cool, that's enough context. Now let's get to the main meat of the video and see the 4 things that Lenskart solved that Titan Eye Plus couldn't. Starting with the first one, the accessibility problem. See, India is called the blind capital of the world because 40% of the world's visually impaired people live in India. Or the other way to look at it is the entire TAM that Lenskart was going after was huge. Now, remember, they were competing with Titan Eye Plus and the next door Chashma Walas. So Lenskart had to solve for distribution first, or accessibility. And that's why they were one of the first D2C brands in India to adopt an omni-channel or a phygital model which combined both physical and digital channels. They were bullish on stores and understood that Indian consumers need to touch and feel the products they're about to buy. But this physical expansion was going to be a very capital intensive task. So to solve for this, they initially got a lot of investors on board, and over time. So many big investors like Ratan Tata, IFC, Azim Premji, Ronnie Screwwala, and even world's largest technology-focused investment fund, Masasan's Vision Fund, came on board. Now, of course, with this, they cracked tier 1 markets and later moved on to expand into tier 2 cities. Currently, Lenskart has more than 2,000 stores spread across 200 plus cities in India, while Titan Eye Plus only has about 1,000 stores in almost the same number of cities. And Lenskart stores weren't like any other India had ever seen. These stores were vibrant, filled with tech to try on specs, and the staff was super polite, who would cater to you really nicely. This was the key differentiation, and we'll come back more on what they sold offline, but that was on the offline distribution piece. The second distribution strategy was to double down on online and mobile presence. See, Lenskart started as a website first, so they were building a lot of user insights into how their customers behaved online. And remember, this was a time when e-commerce was growing in India. Indians were becoming more open about buying stuff solely from Amazon, Flipkart, and all these e-commerce players. And in 2017, Lenskart became the first player in the industry to launch their own app. The way they solve for user acquisition here is super interesting. I mean, first, they gave customers a great virtual trial experience of frames to see how their frame would look on their face. This solved for the friction a user would have to go to a shop near them. Second, they gave home eye checkups from certified professionals for only 99 rupees. Plus, think about every time you've gotten an eye checkup done via Lenskart. That ophthalmologist is probably the best salesman that these folks have, because they have the specs to try on right there, and they're right at the point of purchase where the metal is hot because you're feeling slightly scared after getting your eye checkup done, and they can sell a new eyewear to you. Third, they solve for free home trials with multiple frames at the doorstep of consumers, where consumers could choose one and finalize it and pay for it right there. Fourth, they delivered the product within a couple of days for free and promised free repair. But fifth, and probably the most effective distribution strategy they had in their earlier days, was their viral referral program. See, this program incentivized customers with a cash reward of 50 to 100 rupees on every contact sync. So as users allowed the syncing of their phone contacts, the company got a new pool of customers to reach out with marketing campaigns. This gave Lenskart a massive 200 million customer database in just 6 months. And imagine, even if they converted 1% of it, they get 2 million customers from here easily. This is very similar to what we covered on Facebook's acquisition strategy in our previous wireframe. Now, is this ethical today and would it work? We'll leave that for you to decide. But the permutation and combination of these initial strategies were completely missing in Titan's playbook throughout. They were just not thinking as big as the folks at Lenskart. Talking about thinking big, see, thinking big is the core DNA of everything for GrowthX members. To give you an example, the Founders Circle, which is an exclusive community of founders inside GrowthX, made $150 million in revenue last year. That's revenue, not even valuation. And Rajneesh, for example, our GX5 member and head of demand generation at Keka HR, built a 10 crore events pipeline after doing the craft of event-led growth. And there are so many such examples of GrowthX members raising the bar every day. GrowthX members are a breed apart. And if you're someone working in product, marketing, business functions, or if you're a founder, GrowthX might be the right tribe for you. We close applications for this cycle of GrowthX memberships on 3rd March. And of course, folks who apply earlier get higher preference during the entire membership process. The link to apply for a GrowthX membership is in the comments. Now, let's talk about the next problem Lenskart solved. The second problem, the affordability problem. Now, as I said before, Peyush wanted to build the Maruti in India's eyewear space. And in a price-sensitive market like India, this is only possible when you target not the 1% premium consumer, but instead target the average Indian consumer. So they positioned Lenskart as a super affordable product and followed the principle of value-based pricing. See, while the product was affordable, he made sure to craft a premium experience once the customer walks into the store or goes onto their app. They wanted to create a higher perceived value for the brand, so paying for the eyewear itself felt like a steal deal. Their taglines like starting from 500 attracted every average Indian consumer and thus solved the very first purchase problem for them. They even gave customers their first frame free in the beginning. Once the customer was in the store, Lenskart would smartly upsell their customers better lenses like anti-glare, anti-blue light, and all the other fancy things. And mind you, the money in this business is not in the frame, it's always been in the lenses. So simple strategy, attract people with the hook of cool looking frames and make money on the lenses. Plus, they didn't just stop at the first purchase. They even upsold offers like the gold membership, where customers would get 1+1 free whenever they purchased a new pair. I mean, if I have to be honest, these were tempting. And there were many customers who bought the gold membership in excitement, but hardly used it or forgot about it later. And I'm talking about me, by the way. The membership though has one core reason: make Lenskart sticky and create loyal customers. All of this helped in creating amazing hype among consumers that if you have to get a wide variety of style choices with affordable rates and a premium service, Lenskart is the place to be at. A place where you won't be charged a premium depending on where the store is located. So they brought price standardization and established massive trust. And this is the place where Titan Eye Plus missed the bus, by the way. In fact, in an interview, Somin Bhomik, the CEO of Titan Eye Plus, once said that they stopped giving discounts because they realized that it's not who they are. Now in hindsight, it didn't work for them. But moving on to the third problem that Lenskart solved: awareness. Many companies create fleeting hype, but they aren't able to create fans or a community or a brand per se. And it's super rare to see a startup making in-house brands succeed at this scale. Brands like Vincent Chase and John Jacobs are in-house brands of Lenskart, and they are doing more revenue than most of the startups today combined. And this strategy is, well, from an investor turned competitor themselves, from the famous playbook of TATA's. It's simple. Create separate in-house brands with different values and run them separately. Think about how Westside and Zudio are two different brands with different price points and aspirational value, but from the same parent company, the Tatas. Remember, this is exactly what we spoke about in our Zudio Wireframe video. Now, to really crack this, Lenskart invested in the craft of great advertising, be it offline or online. They sold glasses as fashion and not as a necessity. This aspiration of owning more than just one pair of glasses was not something that was ever cracked before by Titan Eye Plus or any other player for that matter. Even their initial campaigns put out the messaging of owning more than just a pair. Today, Lenskart has more than 5,000 styles and they sell their excessive variety as a USP. Because see, the aim was simple: to get recurring sales from the same consumer. They wanted the same consumer to buy more than one pair and then crack repeatability, repeat orders from that customer. They also generated massively high word of mouth, and they did this also by adopting the latest tech, by the way. In fact, they were probably the first ones to get the famous blue cut. They knew that if you have to reach out to the masses, you would have to go the mainstream star route and not via micro-influencers. Even their latest campaign with Karan Johar and Peyush Bansal generated massive traction. And while all of this was reaping great benefits for Lenskart, one of the most pivotal points, and something that all of you know and we should mention, is the obvious Shark Tank. See, Peyush Bansal used a national massive distribution to become a household name, and people started going to stores to buy the frames that he was wearing on the show. He himself became a brand. So him sharing an ad screen with Karan Johar is not a fluke. Peyush Bansal himself is a star today. See, with this, Lenskart became a much more relatable, fun, and approachable brand, something which was completely missing from Titan Eye Plus's strategy. Now, coming down to the last and the most tricky problem that Lenskart solved: unit economics. See, one of the biggest challenges for a business like Lenskart is to manage supply chains and their stores effectively. At this scale, managing inventory is chaos, but Lenskart did it surely well. In fact, Notice this whenever you go to a Lenskart store next. You're literally going to one of the most perfectly executed business examples of AI implementation. Let me explain. See, Lenskart doesn't only use barcodes for each of their inventory items, further to implement AI tracking. And they track everything. From stock levels in stores, inventory in transit, real-time sales data, product performance, even external factors such as seasonality, regional variables, and whatnot. So for example, if a particular frame is getting sold out really well, the system would make sure that the inventory is stocked for it. And if a product is not working out, the system would automatically allot less inventory for it. The positioning of the specs even in the store is based on historical data and regional preferences to hook you in when you enter a store and thus start your buying journey. Even in factories, Lenskart decided to install the most advanced tech. Plus, there has been news recently that Lenskart is making the largest automated eyewear manufacturing facility in the world. And after the acquisition of the Japanese D2C brand Owndays, Lenskart is eyeing global expansion with 500 of their stores outside India already. Now, if I have to summarize, the main difference between the approach of Titan Eyewear and Lenskart has probably been the aggressiveness at the core of their strategies and the big thinking that Peyush Bansal brought to the table. Plus, Titan Eyewear is just 2% of the revenue for the entire Titan group. That's small and probably one of the reasons behind their slow-paced growth. That's it for today. I'll see you in the next one.